those for the important things that are impacting our community the greatest. And then at that point in time, use that process to have a discussion and dialogue with everybody who's going to be impacted, and so that we can all agree. But that only comes from those relationships that are developed from community to community, or like our bigger community where everybody in that community has that equal voice. So we can't do that unless, as Scott just said, without having that relationship developed and that openness to have discussions on an ongoing basis, and maybe we wouldn't even need to have one if we had that, okay?
Yes, thank you. I agree that referendums they can be very expensive, but I also think they can also pay for themselves sometimes, depending on what it was you had the referendum on. I don't clearly have a clear understanding myself, my own mind, but I think there should be either a financial threshold or an importance of the issue that should automatically trigger a referendum. It sort of ties back into what I said earlier. I really believe that 88,000 people are smarter than the 9 people we've elected. This idea that we elect people every 4 years and we give them sort of carte blanche to make all these different decisions for us for the next 4 years without coming to us and seeing what we actually think, I just don't think is right. I do think that a referendum does have its place. I don't think it should be done for frivolous little matters, but I do think there is a threshold, whether it's a dollar value, 3 million, 5 million, whatever it happens to be. I think it should automatically go to a referendum. Thank you.
My name is Mike Horn, and I come back to the principle of value for money. Referendums do have some value, but they have a place within participatory democracy. If we're just going to use referendums as an alternative to elections or as an alternative to council making decisions, that's not good enough. If we use them as one tool in the toolbox of communicating between the community and the city, that would be value for money. It doesn't always solve problems. We had a referendum on the convention center. Now we have a convention center that seems to be badly managed. We usually have referendums on issues like spending $7 or $8 million or creating or destroying a park. Yet here we have this massive controversy over radically changing a park in Harewood, spending $7 or $8 million to do it, and there's no point in having a referendum because the province could overrule us. We could use that to make the province take responsibility and actually address the problem, but I think that referendums are only a partial tool, and as I said before, I'm against this fake referendum of the alternative approval process. I would never vote in favor of one of those.
Thank you. Just quickly on the Harewood Dams. We all know there's nothing wrong with the dams and it got to stay as is. So that's what Christmas said. Nothing in my view of referendums, ladies and gentlemen, I forgot Bill Yoakum, this conversation on referendum should not even be happening. It's not to disrespect anyone in the room, for the fact of the lack of planning and lack of good governance is why this conversation has even been had this evening. For example, the island is not that large, but pieces and parcels of land are available. We all know that hole where the Columbia Hilton's been there. This part conversation should not be happening because there's good strategic planning, etc. that should not be had. So referendums also be used as a weapon. I see managers using it as a tool of these knee-jerk reaction things they bring to the table. That causes a panic of referendum because that is bad planning. So I think we can start bringing good planning, good governance. This conversation will be mitigated, be reduced, ladies and gentlemen. But when there is a need be, like for example, the example of the $9 million purchase, which is not part of planning, there should be a referendum. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Gordon. The city does have a policy on what triggers a referendum, if I'm not mistaken, and Ron can nod his head or not.
Just for parks.
Okay, so it's just for parks, but they have had referendums in the past on long-term borrowing, on short-term borrowing. And the unfortunate thing is that a lot of you don't know is that there have been a fair number of them, and they have been done through the alternate approval process. $20 million borrowed for the water treatment plant, alternate approval process. 3 people signed that form, myself, Jim Taylor, and I believe Ron Boland. That's it, out of a community of 88,000. For an alternate approval, you have to get 10% of the population to side with it. It's almost impossible to do. Should never be done unless there's simple matters.
Jim Rutledge. There are specific rules about the use of referendum. I don't know what they are, but I do know they exist, and I do know that there is a position within our city staff that is given responsibility to know those rules. And I have seen time again where those rules are not clearly available at all times to all people. And I do lay that at the feet of a specific person, and I would like to see steps taken to correct a couple of things like that. My problem with referendum is not so much about the money, but it is more about the time. And this is where I come back to the financing of a number of things, parks and waterworks and things that if they're planned out long enough, it can be included in the election or a referendum. Really, $150,000 for a referendum on a $30 or $40 million issue is not that bad, but it's more the time it takes to get through the decision process. There are processes for all these things, and if we can move them along and apply the process, vote, move on. Thank you.
So we're just going to continue. You guys have anything? What would be your first main priority if you were elected?
Okay, I touched on it. Good timing. If I was in the position I would like to be in, I would turn back the clock. A number of the issues that have come up in Nanaimo, and I look at Peter Cast, I look at the dams, basically, I would turn back the clock and do a full-blown headhunter hunt search for a city manager position with an MBA. I have a university education. I did a commerce degree. I understand the workings of business. I understand the needs of a modern, more large, not a large corporation, but a big city. I need somebody with an MBA, somebody that has run a city, somebody that has experience in training and education. That would be the first and most important thing I would do.
Sadly, one would say that by promoting from below, you have the experience, the education, the knowledge to become a city manager. You know what I say to that? Bullshit. We have seen what's happened in Nanaimo. We've had Jerry Gary, we had Al Kenning, we now have Ted Swady. They are essentially clones of each other. They have learned their management style from above. If I can accomplish one thing once I'm elected to council, we will deal with the way that the city hires management. Set term contracts. It's not a lifetime position.
Thank you. If I was a privilege to be city council member, I would first and foremost put the, no pun intended, put the dam issue to rest. It's been nothing. It's been a conversation. It's recycling again. It didn't go away. I would put it to rest. And in my view, right now is there's nothing wrong with the dam. Everyone here grew up with the dam. Everyone loved the dam. It's a big part of our heritage in our beautiful city. So that's one thing I think we resolved right away. Along with I'm cheating here because I see the clock's not up. And also along with bridging our communities, etc., and be a bridge with other stakeholders and start showing unity and leadership. Thank you.
The first priority for me, if you elect Mike Horn to City Council, would be to radically but steadily improve communications in the city. We've had a lot of debate and a lot of controversy in this city, but not enough communication. We need to start opening up discussions. We need to start listening to each other. And if there are groups at loggerheads within the city or between the community and the city, we need to break down, hire a mediator, and treat the community and the city as equals, and stop having the city council imposing its will on the communities which turn around and resist city council decisions. Thank you.
I suppose one thing, if you can do it, but I think there's a law against it. Guy Fawkes tried it, and I think that's probably about the only way you can really sort out this thing at City Hall, is to blow the whole thing up and start all over again. I don't think you can take one thing and say that's the magic bullet, that's the silver solution. I just don't think that exists. You need a council that recognizes they are supposed to be the leaders. You don't need a council that keeps going to city staff and saying, well, what do you think? What should we do? What's important? What should we do in the city? How should we go about it? And that's exactly what I've seen for the last 6 years. That's all that happens. City council has been void of leadership for the last 6 years that I've watched, and if that's the one thing I could do, except for blowing the whole thing up, that's what I would like to see change. Thank you.
Stephen Bachman, I agree. That's actually quite humorous, but quite real. I think it's all about accountability, accessibility, and just getting out there and talking with people about what we want to do here. So if I'm going to be elected, my priority is just about going out there and being a leader. But I think Gord said it, and a couple of other people down here said, walking the walk and talking the talk. If we're not out there as leaders and active members of our community, I'd be doing it anyway as a private citizen. But if I'm on council, then I'm going to be doing it even that much more, and assisting people in connecting with one another and doing it on a regular basis. And my integrity and my honesty stands for itself. So you can ask anybody in this community that I've worked for, with, alongside with, developed a program, done everything. That's what I'm going to do on council. Thanks.
I would appreciate you as a good guy. I think if I was elected on council, I think the biggest thing would be the relationship between council and staff. It seems to be dysfunctional, and I think that needs to happen. I think, as Steve has said, the community, you can talk to the community, and that's great, and we understand what the taxpayers want, but if you're in a dysfunctional chamber and staff are not working well with council, then I think that is the number one thing that needs to change.
Matthew O'Donnell, I would, going in line with a lot of what these folks are saying, I would be reviewing the dynamic between City Hall and the city staff. Not just still in the way, I think a lot of times we talk about how it seems like the city hall or city staff is running the show, and a lot of times I believe that they are. But a lot of the other times I believe that city council is working with city staff against the greater good of us citizens. So I'd be reviewing that as well, and I think that's a major thing that we need to look at. And at the same time, we should review everything that's happened in the last 3 years as well as it pertains to that relationship. And when it comes to, now I'm not going to mention any names, I don't want to go on a witch hunt, but any high-level managers in that city hall who have been, doing things that we don't like, maybe they should go. Maybe we should find another person in that position.
If I had one thing to do, and that would, we've seen the divisiveness in this council over the last 3 years, is my goal would be try to get everybody to work together for a common goal. And that common goal is to retain trust, bring back the trust to the voters.
Nanaimo can be a green tourist destination where people come here because, hey, skateboarding for the young. It adds economy and money in our pocket. And please, it's time, no matter how smart we think we are, we have to grow food. And we can do it with high-tech greenhouses. We create jobs, go in all the restaurants, and people would come here because it'd be a safe place. No one is shooting at us, and we can do it in Nanaimo because it is a special city. And we can get together as people. I'll hold forums with my mayoral salary so we can get together and put our heads together and our hearts and make this the best city ever.
Karen Homestead, and the first thing I would want to see is step out in leadership to build a proper team. We need some internal evaluation so we can reward the people who are doing the job right. There have got to be people at City Hall who really do know what they're doing, love what they're doing, and are doing it well. And the people who are not doing the jobs they should be doing, we need to evaluate them and find a way to make that better. Build a team, encourage the community, engage everybody.
Geraldine Manson. My goal as a council, to be elected into council, I first would get out there, learn about the communities, learn about the members of the citizens, to be a team member, wanting to learn, to walk alongside each and every one, to learn their needs, to be one, and to walk alongside and just to gain, to bring the two communities together, to teach, and to share my history, my culture.
Brian Anderson. And some of the things that were said before, I think one of the things looking back on, I hate to pick on last council, but I think, you know, there's, council to my mind is about planning strategy. And then setting that strategy forward for the city and for staff to follow through on. And I think too many times they get bogged down in the minutia rather than turning around and setting a strategy. And they ended up bringing in a whole, not a bylaw, but a whole agreement about how they're going to treat people and treat people who come in the audiences. I would have thought that was just common sense. So obviously there's some dysfunctionality. I think the first thing to do would be to try and do some team building on a strategy basis.
Kate, I guess, to be honest, to go into the first, I went to council and getting to understand how council operates and how the functions are. It would take a while to really truly answer this question. But if there was one mandate to myself as elected, it would be to change the morale of our city, to change the morale of our staff, our public works, to make the proudness of our city come back to everybody. And that takes engagement, letting those people who work for us, who provide the services, feel good about going to work, not feel that they're in a dysfunctional city because of all their ongoings and certain things, but bring that morale up and bring everybody else's morale up with it.
Ian Thompson, I think the first thing that I would do is work on getting these 8 people who don't know each other, plus the mayor, to understand each other. Because you can't change other people until you figure out your own dynamic. That makes sense? So we have to figure out how to work together as a group. What can we do going forward? How can I understand you? How can I understand you? And then together we can make decisions. And then we can go out to the community and say, this is what we're going to do because we agree. Doesn't mean we all think the same way, but we take the time to get to know each other, and then we're better able to make decisions together so the community feels like we know what we're doing. That'd be great.
Well, I guess when I'm the mayor, I'm going to get council, and we're all going to work together, and we're going to be open. We have to get out and talk to the people. As the mayor, I'm going to make sure they get out there and talk to the people, because they don't want to talk to me. So, basically, I'm a nice guy, but I get out tight when things don't go right. And things are not going right in this city now, so we have to get out there and we have to talk to the people. They are the ones that tell us what they want. We're going to make sure they get what they want. Thank you.